our neighborhood exhibit of the College Park and the Ottawa area. We have a variety of people in the exhibit, and it is just fantastic. Here we have pictures of the churches, the Fisher Street Minute Park, and for example, we have pictures of Sister Gary, who was very active in the neighborhood. She had Western Church, First Church of Deliverance, Olivet Mecklenberg, who was on Channel 5, Mary Johnson, who was on ABC News, and of course you have me, who had 2 radio stations and a television show. I was over at St. Aug and Shaw University on the air, and then I had a television show. Here is our historic marker tour that we still have. Here is Wesleyan Church. There's the old Fisher Street Mini Park, St. Aug Nurses, Richard B. Harrison Library, a lady from the neighborhood, children from the neighborhood, and you know we always have to salute our vets. And we have Tuttle Center Community Center float.
What is it?
And they were in the Christmas parade. That was a long, long time
Where
ago.
would Tuttle Community Center be right now?
Well, it would be on the corner of East Lane Street and Tarrboro Rd.
Oh.
And we have our youth when we did our history marker tour.
Newburn Avenue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then over here, you know, we have Richard B. Harrison Library, Dr. Macaulay, and these are pictures from the neighborhood and the different activities. And here's a picture of the late Bernard Allen.
Oh. You have him on the list file of pictures with the 2008, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And then we have Commissioner James West.
when he was much younger.
Yes, Commissioner James. And this is Dr. Macaulay. He had a hospital on Wilmington Street, but he lived right across the street on Tarrboro Rd. So what you see is just a wealth of information, and it's very educational.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised by just how different Richard B. Harrison Library looks like compared to like that little house right there.
Oh yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I made it.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'm gonna say this again. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We are excited to be celebrating our past and Porchfest. It is truly a great opportunity to be here once again with so many beautiful memories that the panelist is going to share with you today. Now, I would ask that you keep it short because we got a long program and we still have people coming in. But I'm going to start the program. I would like to ask Mr. Willie Stokes to come up and do the opening prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I have the honor to say open prayer, something of the prayer, and we're few right now, but I know we're going to have many coming. Father, thank you. Thank you for another day. Thank you for allowing us to see this beautiful day. Even though it's raining, we know that you're in charge. We know that everything that's being done is done by you, Father. We thank you for all that you have done for us and brought us this far. We thank you for allowing those who are here to be here. Father, we ask you to watch over us and keep us in all that we do and all that we say. Let it be in your name. This is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
I would like to say, but 2 minutes quickly, that I was planning this activity anyway. So when Tina approached me, she said, well, why don't you do it Porchfest style? And I said, what is Porchfest style? And she said, that's when you're in people's front yards and you're telling your history. At first I was a little leery. I said, now you know when you start asking folks, could you be in their front yard? Now wait a minute, that's really different. But out in the street is really fine. So I said, well, I'm doing the activity anyway. So let's give this in your front yard a try. But it rained, so we didn't have it in the front yard. So Tina, in less than a minute and a half, could you tell them about Porchfest? Your Porchfest.
Thanks, Octavia. I'm Tina Govan, and I've been doing Porchfest in Raleigh, and it's just about closing off the street, using your front yards and your porches as stages, and have people come out and perform or story tell. People from inside the house or from the neighborhood, where we entertain ourselves, and it's been a huge success. I'd love to try again here and hope for better weather and just use the street as the public space and have the neighbors come out and just strut their stuff and show their talents and tell their stories. So I'm hoping that Octavia and I can make it happen in the future on a sunnier day. But today's going to be wonderful. Thanks for including me.
I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, but I have to tell him, I have to practice your name. I really have to practice. So, Esther. So I would like to introduce and tell you a little bit about Mr. Nasif Majeed. He is with the North Carolina House of Representatives, District 99 in Charlotte. He is a former business owner. He served 8 years on Charlotte City Council. He attended North Carolina AT&T. He is a decorated U.S. Air Force combat pilot. He was a pilot with Piedmont Airlines, now it is American Airlines. He has 14 years as a clinical chaplain for the North Carolina Department of Corrections. He is the father of 4 and 7 grandchildren. I introduce to you Mr. Nasif Majeed.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. Can you hear me pretty good? Okay. Peace, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. I see all my classmates around, friends, neighborhood friends. And, yeah, it's good to be home. You know. My office is right down the street. I was real on Jones Street here, and right around the corner. And my office in the legislature is on Jones Street. You know, it's kind of ironic, but you know, they say that the criminal will always return to the scene of the crime. If you wait long enough, you know, they'll come around. So I guess I'm guilty. But I'm glad to be here today. It doesn't rain. They say it doesn't rain in the Army. It might rain on the Army, but never rains in the Army. So we sheltered properly. I wish we could have been on the outside, but under the circumstances, we're going to make the best of what we can make. And again, glad to see you here. I want to talk a little about this fantastic neighborhood. Has put out many community leaders, nationally, state, and local. College Park. And we talked about, I was real on Jones Street, but right on the corner here is the Haynes house, my grandfather. As I talk about this neighborhood, and I talk about, well, in particular, my family's contribution to this neighborhood on my father and my mother's side, called East Raleigh and near East, as we call College Park. My grandfather, who was a contractor, built many houses in this area. Had beach houses down on the top sale that he built a lot of beach houses down there, and built one for himself down there, and which he rented out, and we would always spend the summers down there. Jacob Hayes, they called him Jake Hayes. Well, as again, he was an outstanding contractor, a very wise man, and his father, George Washington Hayes. If you go to St. Augustine's campus, I see Everett here, Ward, former president of St. Augustine's College, and played a long line. He played a great deal as far as the history of St. Aug's concerned in that legacy of presidents. The chapel, St. Augustine's Chapel. Well, Jacob Hayes' father, George Washington, was a great stonemason known all throughout North Carolina. He built that chapel. It's on the historic register. As you go along this area, which we see that part of Dubin Avenue cuts through about that fast food restaurant. I think what's it, Popeyes or what is that? It used to be Hardee's or whatever in there. That's where my uncle Lewin lived, and his sister stayed next door. Her name was Rachel McCauley. Rachel received her master's degree from Columbia University. And she stayed next door, and Dr. McCauley, well, he had the only hospital. It was African American owned. He had a hospital. He was at St. Agnes. That was up in Philadelphia and in Washington, D.C. Then he graduated from Shaw University. Back before the turn of the century. In 1923, he established McCauley Hospital. It was on Wilmington Street, right around the corner from the Lincoln Theater. Yeah, I was born there in that hospital. My father was born in the hospital, and my mother was born in the hospital before they got married. He stayed right in this neighborhood, right around the corner. He had a tennis court in his backyard, and Althea Gibson, you heard of Althea Gibson, won Wimbledon. She played on that court. Beautiful, layout in that house. We're talking about this neighborhood and the people, community leaders that were generated from this neighborhood. Dr. Anna Julia Cooper. That's a great 4 times aunt. She was an author, a scholar, educator, sociologist, and activist, and she is considered one of the most noted African American intellectuals in this nation's history, and has been called the mother of black feminism. She has a marker up right on East Street down there. It's sad, but her grave is 2.5. Her house is not 2.5 miles from there, or 2.5 blocks from it. Her grave site is right in that cemetery near East Street and Hargett Street right there. Jacob Stanley Haywood. That was her grandfather. He was a slave. He took part in the construction, planning and construction of the state capitol. Yeah, he was a brilliant man, but he was a slave. And he was well noted and respected. So I had the opportunity on occasion to speak when we had an assembly there in the old Capitol building, and I had a chance to address the assembly about him and pay homage to him and help say a prayer for him during that session. We talked about Dr. Lewin founded McCauley Hospital. It was a 12-bed hospital. He also had a nursing school there for about 10 to 12 years. And it's up to 1952 is when he ceased the hospital operation and just had his offices on Wimbledon Street there here in the city. Calvin Lightner. Everett, I'm named Clarence. I was named Clarence. Well, I changed my name. And Everett is named after my uncle's middle name. He was the first African American mayor of the city, my mother's brother. And he graduated from Shaw University in the turn of the century, just before the turn of the century, in architectural design. And he went on to do construction engineering from Hampton. You see, at the time, the Jews were the teachers at Shaw University after Reconstruction. Yes. So my Uncle Lowen, he received his medical degree. It was a medical school also, Leonard Medical School at Shaw University. So a lot of people came out of Shaw. Matter of fact, all of the state institutions emanated from Shaw. Now, I'm an Aggie, we talk about the Aggie pride, you know about that. All right, I'm in good company. Well, A&T emanated, Fayetteville State emanated, NC, all of them emanated out of Shaw University. And we owe deep gratitude to that university for its part of that process. But Calvin was an architect. And I don't know, some of you remember on Hargett Street, there was a Lightner building. You remember the Royal Theater? I know, the Rat Box, right? That's what they used to say, but it was a Lightner building right across the street. The professionals, Dr. Lane, he had a dental office, and a lot of people had professional offices in that. Also, Eagle Life Insurance, which my grandfather started, and the funeral home was in that. Lightner Funeral Home was in that building. Across the street was the Lightner Arcade, and the Lightner Arcade it had hotel rooms. All the entertainers would come, and they would stay in the hotel. Hamlin Drug, Dr. Hamlin was downstairs. I know you had some of those sandwiches and them milkshakes down there at Hamlin Drug. You know about that. They had all kind of businesses. The Carolinian was in that complex back in, and that was 1913. 1913, that was that. I got pictures where they got horse and carriages. They didn't have cars, they had horse and carriages. We mentioned Mr. Bryant, who was a neighbor here. Mr. Bryant, and maybe Betsy Bryant stayed right around the corner. Her father, in that picture, he's standing there. He was one of the construction people on the project, but my grandfather standing in the background. Cap Calloway, Duke Ellington, all those entertainers would come and stay there and perform in the arcade on one of those levels in that building. And I'm gonna tell you how that came about. My grandmother, the Mills brothers, and everybody would come to my grandfather's house on East Street and stay and everything. And it was, I guess, quite chaotic. And my grandmother said, "Calvin, this has got to stop." She said, "This is too much. All these people come and stay in here. You know what you need to do?" He said, "No, you need to build a hotel. Because this has got to end." So he built a hotel. That's the arcade. A lot of businesses, this was I call it a very insulated community in a way as far as business. I never felt like I was, didn't get my full measure as far as education is concerned. Because, I don't think it was a teacher at Lucille Hunter didn't have their master's degree. I went to Lucille Hunter. Now, right across the street there was the Catholic school. I did go to the Catholic school for about 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. I couldn't take it. I couldn't. Those Sister Monica and all them nuns, they beat me so bad. They beat me so bad. I came home with all these marks. Every day I was coming home with marks on me. She said, "Son," she said, "you're not going to make it there." That's true. She said, we're going to transfer you to public school. because they're going to kill you up there. And so I would walk down the street to Lucy Hunter. And my first grade teacher was Miss May Ligon, the daughter of J.W. Ligon. And that was the most beautiful experience and a change for my health that, I can discuss. But she was a beautiful teacher, and I never looked back. So Calvin had these two buildings, and unfortunately, back in the 70s, only two buildings were burnt down on that street were my grandfather's buildings. As I say, my mother said, we say that's a heck of a coincidence. One across the street, and they only two buildings burnt down. But we know things that were going on at that time, and the ugly things were going on at this time in the history. That we you got to put two and two together. That was no coincidence. Now, my great grandfather, he ran for election. He ran for election in 1990. He and Mr. Pope, the Pope House, Mr. Pope, they ran. He got the most votes. He ran for commissioner of public works. And they had something called the 20th Century Voters Club. And they knew they were going to win because a lot of African Americans couldn't vote. And they said if they won, they know they weren't going to serve. But he said we just wanted to wake our people up politically. That's a part of the struggle. Now, coincidentally, his son, Clarence, he couldn't make it, but his son became mayor of Raleigh in the 70s. So it's interesting history there. My uncle had one son. One of his sons was Hubert Hayes. Hubert Hayes was an electrician. He had the first electrical license in between, I guess, D.C. or in the southeast in Atlanta. He had the first. That's 1945. He and my uncle formed the Hayes Jackson Electric Company. They did great works during the time of rural electrification. They trained a lot of young African Americans, and also my uncle Jack. He was a very astute business person. And he became a Westinghouse dealer. He had a Westinghouse dealership in 1947. I used to go to the store right downtown Hartford. Beautiful facility, very professional. In 2 years, he became the leading distributor, sales of appliances of any distributor in North Carolina. In 1947. In addition, they had Hayes Jackson Electric Company. They had also the Westinghouse dealership on Harvard Street. I'm gonna end up here. My father was the first employee by the North Carolina Department, they called it the prison department then, and he was the first employee of the prison department, and also the first what you call warden or superintendent of a prison camp. It was Raleigh Youth Center, and then it moved to Goldsboro Youth Center. So a lot of good things happened here in this neighborhood. A lot of good people came out of this neighborhood, and I'm just so proud to, I know as many of you, this is what we stand on. This is what, why we are what we are today, because we can look back at those people and take this, not push the ball down the road a little further. So I think I covered some of the people in this area, and it's a little history of this area and the kind of people this area produced. Thank you so kindly.
Thank you so much. You did a perfect job. Just thank you so much. Next, we would have my favorite person, the former president of St. Augustine's University, Dr. Everett Ward. And right after Dr. Ward, we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna have Stephen Bentley with Parks and Recreation. Then we will have Miss Lynette Williams, and then I think it's Faye Chaplin here. Then we will have Faye Chaplin, and then we'll get to the celebration of Al Perry. Dr. Gordon.
Good morning. It is truly an honor to be here with you this morning. First, let's give Octavia Rainey a round of applause. Octavia and I have known each other for years, and no matter what my schedule is, when Octavia Rainey says you need to be somewhere, I change my schedule to be here. And I think we cannot underestimate the moment where we are, because we are documenting and going through an oral history presentation that is really noteworthy. And as a student of history, I could not sit there and not say a few things. Here we have one of the leading educators of this city, Mr. Perry, and his wife. Give him a round of applause. Rashid here just gave the history that he did my master's thesis all over for me again. So give him a round of applause. Mr. Laney. And as I call this area, for me, it is the triangle of life. Born at St. Agnes, attended Tuttle Center, went to St. Monica's, lived on Lane Street, where my cousin's gonna tell you about our great uncle David Weaver. So this is a circle of life for me, and it's an honor to be here. The second privilege I have this morning is to talk about someone who is very dear to me, but dear to all of us, and that is Clarence Everett Lightner, who became the first African-American mayor elected to the city of Raleigh, but also the first properly elected mayor of Raleigh, because prior to 1947, all the mayors of Raleigh were elected by the city council, but it was Clarence Lightner on November 6, 1973, which this year marks the 50th anniversary of Clarence Lightner's election as the first and only black mayor of the city of Raleigh. Now, my good friend did a wonderful job of talking about the family. To understand Clarence Lightner, you have to understand his lineage, and you have to understand that his political actions, his civic actions, his involvement in education was a lifelong legacy that he inherited from the Lightner family, from the Thompson family, who were originally from South Carolina. And it was Calvin Lightner, along with his brothers, that came to Shaw University, one of whom became a medical doctor. And of those 12 children, all the 3 girls became teachers. There was a mortician, there was a doctor, there were contractors and builders, as was mentioned, Calvin Lightner. But what I thought was so important for us to note today also, the great-great-grandson, now serving in the North Carolina House, is following the tradition of his great-great-great-grandfather, Joseph Thompson, who served during Reconstruction in the South Carolina House of Representatives. Now that deserves another round of applause. So it is the legacy. And it was Frank Lightner, who was a carpenter and a builder in South Carolina, and his son Calvin continued that legacy when he came to Raleigh, graduated from Shaw University, and became a contractor and built, as has already been said by his grandson, the most preeminent constructions in the South. The Leitner Arcade and the Leitner Building was phenomenal. So let's talk about Clarence Leitner getting elected to mayor. And I know they told me I had, as all of you know, when Octavia invites you, she tells you how much time you have too. So I've got 10 minutes, and I can't traditionally give this lecture in 10 minutes, but I'm just going to give the highlights. First of all, it's important to know that Calvin Leitner also, as it was mentioned, ran for mayor in 1919, along with Nasif Pope and Mr. Cheek, who was editor of the Black newspaper. These three men were independently wealthy and had their own independence, so they could afford to run for public office without any retaliation. However, there was retaliation. Calvin Leitner was almost tried to run out of business, but he and his family used their resources to keep the Leitner Funeral Home going. Manassas Pope fought in the Spanish-American War, was one of the first registered African-American voters prior to Reconstruction. And then the editor of the Black newspaper, Mr. Cheek, they ran for public office, but they also served, as it was already mentioned, to organize the Black Political Foundation for this city. And they formed the Voters Organization, as it was already mentioned, but then it was the precursor of the Raleigh Wake Citizens Association. And I see my good friend Danny Coleman here. His uncle, Fred J. Carnage, ran for public office, was defeated, later got appointed to the Raleigh City Council, but it was these men who came together that said there will be political engagement in this community and there will be no segment of African Americans left out of the political process. So it was from that foundation that John Winters got elected to the Raleigh City Council first. And we must note that John Winters was elected, Danny, that was in 1961, right? And then Clarence Leitner got elected following that. In 61, John Winters, 1964, Clarence Leitner ran for Wake County Commissioner and was defeated, but he never gave up. He came back in 1967 and ran for the Raleigh City Council and got elected. Why is that important? Because it was not until the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that African Americans were given through federal legislation an opportunity to register to vote without apprehension from localized oppressive actions that we hear about today. So you had to count how many balls were in a bowl. You had to give a grandfather clause. If your grandfather voted in a previous election, you could vote. Well, we didn't have that privilege. It was the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that allowed African Americans to register to vote, to participate in the political process without localized oppression. And it was from 1965 on that you had the emergence of Black elected officials. So it was Clarence Leitner in 1973 that got elected as mayor of Raleigh. How did he get elected? He got elected through a coalition of African Americans and progressive whites, and they came together to have him elected. He won the election, and let me just give you the numbers. He won the general election November 6, 1973, and I'm excited about that day because that was my birthday. I was 15 years old, and my family told me, I said, well, Daddy, where you been? He was precinct chair, precinct 35 at the time. I said, where have you been? I don't have my birthday cake. He said, your birthday today is Clarence Leitner got elected as mayor of Raleigh, North Carolina. So I said, I think I can take that. Clarence Leitner won the election with 53% of the vote, which was unprecedented. The New York Times on the next day wrote an article talking about Clarence Leitner being elected as mayor. Why was that national news? It was national news because for the first time, an African-American mayor in a southern city with a population of over 100,000 citizens, with only a population of 16% of African American registered to vote, was elected mayor of a major southern city. That was headlines all over this country, and that is why Raleigh received the kind of attention that it did nationally. What did Clarence Leitner do? He utilized that notoriety, and he was criticized for forming long-standing relationships with the federal government. Prior to his election, most Raleigh officials did not want federal funds. I wonder why. Clarence Leitner, along with his good friend John Plummer, whose father was a medical doctor here, an ear and nose surgeon who had a hospital also, became appointed by Clarence Leitner. When he became mayor, he appointed John Plummer as the director of what was called Intergovernmental Affairs. And it was Clarence Leitner and John Plummer who went to Washington and lobbied for federal funds to come to the city of Raleigh. What did Clarence Leitner achieve while he was mayor? The first thing which Octavia and I care so much about, it was under Clarence Leitner that the Citizens Advisory Associations were started. Why did that happen? Clarence Leitner had two primary philosophies. One, he was a strong proponent of citizen participation. He wanted government to be accountable to the people. And so he was a strong advocate for the CAC. Because of that, the city of Raleigh was awarded an American City Award because it had a CAC program. And that is what Clarence Leitner did. Now, many people run and jog. I'm one of them. I walk, though, on the greenways in the city. It was Clarence Leitner's administration that bought greenways, and it was his administration that said Raleigh will be known as the city within a park, greenways and parks. It was Clarence Leitner's administration that advocated for mass transit because it was the feeling that people needed to have access to move throughout the city. It was directly related to employment. It was directly related to education. Now, Clarence Leitner was defeated in 1975. However, he did not retire as a public official. After his election, he was even more involved in the community. He served on the Board of Trustees of St. Augustine's University. And when I was a student there, he was chairman of the Board of Trustees and very engaged. He is one of the longest serving trustees on the Board of Trustees at North Carolina State University. He was also appointed to the North Carolina Senate when John Winters, who was serving as a state senator, did not complete his term and was appointed to the Utilities Commission by Governor Hunt. It was Governor Hunt who tapped Clarence Leitner to serve in the state Senate as well. When he was mayor, he, along with Maynard Jackson, the mayor, first African-American mayor of Atlanta, who is a proud graduate of North Carolina Central's law school, whose mother was on the faculty at North Carolina Central University teaching French. He, along with Dutch Moriel, Johnny Ford in Tuskegee, Alabama, they formed what was called the Southern Conference of Black Mayors. That organization evolved into what is now known the National Conference of Black Mayors. So it was Clarence Leitner and those mayors that formed that national powerful organization that we have benefit today. Clarence Leitner understood that while he was very dedicated to the city of Raleigh, he was very dedicated to North Carolina, he was a part of a national network that brought resources into this state and helped countless people. He was a member of the Democratic National Committee. He was also a national officer in his fraternity of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. He served as a national president for the funeral home directors of this nation. And so this was a man who understood that engagement was a critical part of civic participation and an endless fighter for all people to have access. Now, I got the chance, a very rare opportunity to know him in various capacities. One, the first, we were all family friends. My grandfather and my father and Clarence Lightner, we all grew up at Davie Street Presbyterian Church together. So what I remember about Mr. Lightner, he would always spend time with us as children and give us a little money for candy and stuff after church. We couldn't eat it during church and chew chewing gum in church. Now they can chew chewing gum, get up and go to the bathroom and everything else in church. We couldn't do that. But more importantly, I got to know him as a young person when I was a student at St. Augustine's. He was very active in the Democratic Party. I was the chair of the College Federation of Young Democrats. But what he did was he always took time for young people. He always invested in young people. But then he was responsible for and an advocate when I became a full-time employee for the North Carolina Democratic Party, became the first African-American executive director of the Democratic Party. It was Clarence Lightner who would take me into the halls of Congress and introduce me to people all over this country, and we brought resources to this state. And in 1992, Ralph Campbell got elected as state auditor in this state because of the work that people like Clarence Lightner, John Winters, Fred J. Carnage, and others did as elected officials to lay that platform for what we know now as black elected officials all over this country. So I want to close you with something that I always do when I talk about Clarence, and that is I want to give you, as we all know, we lost him July 8th, 2022. And in those very last moments, Clarence was always a workaholic. I know his nephew will tell you, he would wake up early and call you and tell you, this is what we need to do today. Or I'd write speeches for him sometimes, and he would say, no, I don't want to say that. He'd cross it all out, and I spent hours working on the speech now. And he would take it and just destroy it. But one of the things that was very clear, he did not appreciate formality that served as a roadblock to people having access to government. And that was something he really stood firm against. He always told us that the people are who you must report to and who you have to hold accountable. So I leave you with these words from him. There are few more satisfying moments in life that when you witness a change that was once a dream to improve the lives and the conditions of so many, and realize that you were a part of making that dream a reality. So today, again, as we approach the 50th anniversary of his election, let us hold fast to what Clarence Lightner and so many others were all about. Government is for the people, and it is the people that must have access to the government and hold the government accountable. And also, this morning is an example of why we cannot allow anyone to say that our history cannot be taught accurately. Because if we don't tell our own story, no one else will. And so for that, I am eternally grateful. This master's thesis means more to me than what any of you can imagine. Clarence was even reluctant to even participate, but I said, look, I got to finish North Carolina State with a master's degree. He said, okay, I'll give you some time. He was a very humble man, and he did not like to talk about himself at all. But fortunately for this academic research, he did allow himself to participate in interviews where we could ask him questions about his mayoral race. Was he criticized? Yes, he was. There's not an elected official that's never criticized. But one thing I will say about him, He never allowed anyone to define his reality. He defined his own reality, and he stayed focused on serving the people of this community until he took his last breath. Thank you all very much.
Everett is my dear, dear friend. And I would like to say, is Johnny Blaylock here? Well, Johnny and I have been talking about the TOD, which is the Transit Overlay District. I don't support the TOD because it calls for a rezoning of our neighborhood. And we don't want to lose our R10. Now, I don't know whether Corey's here or not, but I'm just saying. Well, I'm just saying, we don't want to lose our R10 zone. I just want you to understand it. And if you want our vote for mayor, you cannot support the TOD. Right is right, wrong is wrong. There are certain things in that TOD that's not right. It's a black racial profile. All our mayor did was cover it up with sweet stuff. But the bottom line is the black racial profile. With the BRT, we need to make sure that black folk will still be riding that bus. You don't put that kind of money in no bus ever. You exclude black folk. You exclude black folk. And they have not proved to me yet that the BRT will be a place that black folk can catch the bus. I don't believe it. I think it's going to be another R line, a special created bus. Yes. But I want you to know, Everett, I want you to come join us. We are going to meet with the City Council and the NCDOT. We want to name Newman Avenue Clarence E. Lightner Avenue. All right. Bring other things to that table for that TOD. Yeah. That TOD is too white. It is, Corey, it is. And I'm just telling you, if we don't get what we want out of it, you're not getting that vote. I put it on the table.
Well, now that I've given my research, I'm gonna say something else now. I want you all to understand that, was it about 25 years ago, 30 years ago, Octavia Rain and I walked these neighborhoods because there was a disproportionate representation of alcohol being sold in front of Tuttle Center when students were there. We walked those streets.
We sure did.
Now, one of the things that I want us to understand, activism and political engagement is needed now more than ever before.
It is.
And while some celebrate Raleigh being a point of great destination now, and we are considered one of the top cities in the country to come to, I remind people often, there's a tale of two cities.
Right.
There's a part of Raleigh where there's great prosperity, but then there's also a part of Raleigh that need us now more than ever before, because prosperity must be equally distributed with our tax dollars. And I can say that as the former president of St. Augustine's University, when we tried to get help for St. Augustine's and its students, we could get none. But other universities could. And I'll leave it at that. Never stop fighting for what we are entitled to as a people. God bless you, and thank you for having me.
Come up and talk about Tarrboro Rd, then Lynette Williams, and then Faye, and then we will honor Mr. Perry.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Dr. Ward had 10 minutes. She told me I had 2, so I will keep it really, really short. My name is Stephen Bentley, and I have the honor of being the Parks Director for Raleigh, North Carolina. I wanted to highlight 2 things, the power of parks and recreation. So a lot of people think trees and sport leagues and basketball, and to me it's this. It's bringing your neighbors together, learning from one another, Thank you to Ms. Rainey, who does this very well, so we already acknowledge that. But it's learning about your past so that we can be better as we move forward. Ms. Rainey wanted me to talk about the Parks Bond, and I'm excited to share, and I hope you all know that we're not going to renovate or make improvements here. We are going to build a new center here at Tarrboro Rd. So $29 million to build a new center here. We will also make improvements to the teen center. So as I said, the power of Parks and Recreation is about supporting our community for your physical health, your mental health, your creative health, honoring the neighborhoods in which they're in. So we'll have new gymnasium, new classrooms, state-of-the-art facilities here, and we'll begin that work with the community next year. So I look forward to working with all of you on creating the next best community center here in Raleigh, here at Tarrboro Rd. So thank you very much for having me, and I think I kept it at 2 minutes.
You know I'm short. You got it? That's it. Can you hear me? Yes. We're having a hard time hearing back here. Good morning or afternoon, I'm not sure what it is. But anyway, I'm Frances Lonette Williams. And I have to give you my whole name because of the person that I came to be because of those nuns right across the way. I attended St. Monica's School, starting off in first grade. And was asked the first day of school, those of you who can write your name, go write your name on the board. We had chalk and a chalkboard. And I went up there and I scrawled Lonette Williams all across that board. Because I had been going over to Crosby, slipping down into my aunt Mary Watson's first grade classroom with the Cofield twins and other folks, you know, that went to Crosby. I was supposed to have been a Raleigh Day nursery. Miss Butler couldn't keep up with me. And we lived on the first row in Chambers Heights. And I cut out the back door when it was time for the little children to take naps and go around the back of the building and slip in Auntie's classroom so I could be with the big boys and girls and read my books. So I scrawled Lonette Williams straight across the board. I'm named for my daddy, Lonnie Williams. And I said, that's not your name. I said, what? That is my name. Always been feisty. My great-grandmother, Anna Lee Chavis, lived with us, who was first born free on my mother's side of the family. She said, that's not your name. Your name is Frances. I said, who is that? I've been climbing up trees with Horace Robertson and Laban Thomas and all these guys over here on the Idlewild area. I said, that ain't my name. Give me a girl's name like that. I ran home to my great-grandmother who was there, Granny, Anna Lee Chavis. I said, Granny, excuse the expression here, but that white woman up there trying to change my name, I ain't having it. Granny called my mother from work and said, you better come home. This girl don't run home from school, 5 years old. My mama came and she said, what are you doing here? I said, that woman tried to change my name and I ain't having it. That is your name, but nobody ever used that name. So that started me having to use Frances. Everybody in my family called me by my middle name, and that was the name I cherished. And the people who know me in Raleigh from my family's relationship, that's what they call me. But those who met me at school, since that became my quote official name, call me Frances. So to keep from confusing people, I just used the whole thing so you know it's one and the same person. So I said I lived on Idlewild Avenue. No, I did not live in South Park. I am just a South Park activist now because I have family who live there, and I have come to live in the South Park neighborhood now since the late 1990s. I want to talk to you a little bit, according to Octavia, about living on the Idlewild Avenue corridor. And I'm going to give the Idlewild Avenue runs from Newbern Avenue down to Oakwood Avenue. I'm just going to highlight a few people and names and places to kind of give you an overview of what it was like from my memory as a child and what I still cherish today. This is my home. On the Newbern Avenue corridor, there was Willie Odie Kay, who was a dress designer, and she worked with her sisters, the Odie sisters, Mildred Taylor, Lizzie Constance, Chloe Gervais Laws, and her sister-in-law, Dora Odie, who lived near Nasif Majeed up here on this end of Jones Street. They designed and made beautiful wedding gowns, party dresses, anything you want, from their own ability to design and create. They did not use patterns. They were fantastic. A few years back, the North Carolina Museum of History featured the Odie sisters with a beautiful exhibit at the North Carolina History Museum. Next door to her was Darrell and Harold Webster. They were educators. And Darrell Webster's mother and father had a grill, Webster's Grill, on the corner of Edenton and Idlewild. Remember those hot dogs, Deborah, Gwen? They were fantastic. Harriet Webster later became a member of the Wake County School Board. We had Jane, Jock, and Lillian Abram, who also lived on Newbern Avenue, and they owned and built a multiplex residential unit there. He was retired military, and they were both educators, and he taught at Liggum School when he came out of the military. That's the 800 block of Newbern. That residential complex is still operating today. I think it has about 6 apartments in it. Next door to it was now Brown Realty, and at that time, Johnny Farmer, who was an educator, became a principal. My aunt Elder Harris Brown also lived in that duplex, and later my mother lived there. Telling you that there are different types of residential units that were part of our neighborhood at that time. Some were single-family homes, some were duplexes, some were multiplex. Coming down, we crossed Edenton Street. Ralph and June Campbell family lived on Edenton Street. And you know the story of the Campbells' fight for Bill to be the first to integrate or to desegregate the schools in the Raleigh public school system. Mr. Campbell was a post office mechanic, and Mrs. Campbell worked at St. Augustine's University as a secretary. Then there was the John Washington family, right across the Sewell Avenue area, and I can't think of his wife's name, but she designed beautiful porcelain black dolls. Had a business that has been featured all over the world for those dolls that she created. She had 2 children that I recall, Rosemary Ellis and Carolyn Washington. Mr. Raines was across the corner, also on Sewell, at the corner of Sewell Avenue. He had an oil company driver. Gwen Ligon Hickerson. Her grandfather was John W. Ligon. She and her husband and their children also lived on Edenton Street. She was an educator, her husband was an educator. Across the street from the Campbells was the Eddie Winston and Maybelle Winston family. Mr. Winston owned a social club, is what I call it. Trina's around now on Hick Street, everybody laughing. That's where the men of the neighborhood would gather and enjoy each other's company every day of the week. Mr. Washington also lived on Edenton Street, on Lenore and Idlewild and Edenton. He owned duplex apartments there. Next to him was Mr. Howard Montague. Next to them in the 100 block of Idlewild was my aunt and uncle, Frank and Mary Watson. Frank was a World War I veteran, Shaw alum, and a postal carrier. His wife was a Fayetteville State graduate and was one of the first educators to be certified from Fayetteville State University. She had the pleasure of rearing my father and his younger brother, who were left orphans when their mother died at a very young age. And so they were actually like more grandparents to me, and people confuse us, but she was actually an aunt and uncle. Next to her was Mr. Leach and his son. Next to them was Gaither Harris with his daughter, Gussie. We call her Pig. And how we got away with calling a grown woman Pig, I do not know. but that was Brenda Harris's mother, and we were told to call her Pig Harris. Then next to them was Algie and Susie Green, and they reared a nephew, Bobby Butler, that the girls all over Raleigh loved to come by and try to catch him on that porch. That was across the corner from me. Next door to them was the Honeycutt store. It was white owned. And after they sold the store and moved up to the corner of Lane and Idlewild, the Myers Upholstery Company was featured there. Valjean Myers family bought that store and they used it for a little store, but basically an upholstery company. At the 106 Idlewild was Hattie and Julie Raines. And they had 2 children, Pauline and Marguerite. And those were some high-stepping majorettes at Ligon High School that the men loved to follow behind when those girls would step out with those short uniforms on and strut down Fayetteville Street. Oh, they were known to be those high-stepping girls from Ligon School. Next to them was Tom and Lillian Owens. Now, they had a house that told the story. You know, the big 2-story house that the students from St. Aul kept in business. And students from St. Aul would walk around that block, come here, because they were able to rent rooms for their social activities there by the hour. Okay, next to them was Doris Jones, who was also an educator. We lived at 202, Lonnie and Natalie Williams. With children, Mary Elizabeth was my oldest sister, who went to St. Monica's with me, my brother, the younger brother, late Michael Jerome Williams, and I were reared in that house. My daddy was a chef. My mother was an elevator operator and then later became an employee of the state in administrative services. Next to us in the 200 block was Miss Walden. She was an elderly lady from Elm City, North Carolina, and later retired and moved with family away, and then my aunt and uncle. Otis Harris, who we call Peter, and his wife Daisy, lived in that house and raised one son, Otis Edward Jr. My Aunt Daisy went on to become, she had worked as a clerk, retail clerk at the Lady Shop on the corner of Wilmington and Hargett Street, and she became the owner of the Lady Shop, people used to call Goodman's Lady Shop, high-end retail. Next to them was Uncle Willie and Marina Bell and Jimmy Bell. They were educators and lived, and Jimmy was a postal worker who also lived on Idlewild. They lived in a 2-story house. Directly across the street from them were my good friends who are here today, the Burwell family. Uncle Willie and his sister, Miss Mary Burwell, owned a humongous apartment complex on the corner of Jones and Idlewild. I don't remember how many units were in that. When do you or Debbie remember? It had to be at least 8, didn't it? At least 8 units now. You're talking about affordable housing and creating density in a block. There were at least 8 apartments in that one structure there. Next door to them was Mr. Lovelace Burwell, who was a renowned barber on Hill and Oakwood Avenue, and I won't say anymore because his son is here to speak on him, but he was one of the favorite males who lived in our neighborhood. Everybody loved him. Then we had a Mr. Raines who lived in the middle of the block. He owned a duplex there, and I'm not sure what his occupation was at that time, but he was related to Pauline's father. In his duplex was Miss Montague. We call her Monty. At that time, she served, as you believe this, my sister's nanny for her little girl, Pamela Sharp. Can you believe that back in the 60s that we had nannies? But we did. Pam Sharp had a nanny, who was Miss Montague, who moved into my sister's apartment in Washington Terrace to help my sister care for her child so she could complete her education at St. Agnes. Then there was DeQuincy Seals, his grandmother and sister. The Curtis family, Patricia Thomas, Janice and Odessa Thomas on Lane Street and Idlewild. Then on Jones Street, we had Mr. Harold Rand, his wife Rosa, who had a beauty shop in the back of her house. Mr. Rand actually was a dry cleaner at Honeycut Cleaners, which is no more as of recent, it is. Maddie and John Hall lived next door to them on Jones Street, and she was a beautician as well. Then we were right across in the intersection of Heck Street. That's the 200 block. We had a wonderful old lady who suffered from severe rheumatoid arthritis. And that's where my mother taught me how I needed to be a person to give service. She lived alone, but everybody in the neighborhood pitched in to be of service to her. She did not have a refrigerator. She had an ice box. And I would be there sometimes when the delivery would come with this big block of ice, with these big forceps, and bring it inside her house and put it in this big wooden box for her to have to keep her food fresh. In addition to that, we collected newspapers for her to cover her bed so that it would keep her in a comfortable place to rest during the day. We had Mr. Horace and Annabelle Robinson, who lived across the street. Their children were Horace Jr., Bubba, whose name was Henry, and Ernestine. Josephine Williams owned the house on the corner. It too was a duplex. And that's where Janet Young and her family lived. Ronald and Claude. Then with the lower area we had of Jones Street, and next to my good friend Nasif Majeed with his good buddy Henry Worth. The Manns lived in the same area, Phyllis and Barbara Mann. And then below that was Carolyn Carter Peoples and her family. Just wanted to share with you just some of the names and the people who have been in that area around Idlewild. Ruth Jeffers and her husband raised Lawrence and Vita and Jean Jeffers there. Then the Macks moved into that house when they left. It was Carolyn, Ann, Bennett, David. The Laniers were next door to them. Emily Mae Morgan Kelly at the intersection of State Street. She was a musician and was the director of music for First Baptist Church for many years, and was the music teacher at J.W. Ligon School and the author of the Ligon Alma Mater. Next to them was Mr. Thomas Day, who was blind, but he made furniture. We don't know whether he was related to the Thomas Day or not, but we're going to be doing some research now that we're older to try to make these connections to see. Next to them was the Poe family. Paulette Mack, I think I saw her come in. Her parents and her grandmother had the best pomegranates in the world that we used to sneak through there and grab them on our way home from school and hopefully not get caught. Across the street was Mr. Williams' store, a little candy store. Later, my uncle got that store, and then the Scales got it. So there was always entrepreneurship occurring in our neighborhoods, different things connected to your homes, within your home. And we have the St. Monica School that many of us went to and enjoyed the opportunity to have small classes, small groups of people that we would get to know and would keep friends for the rest of our lives. The Haynes family lived across the street, as did Dr. McCauley. We were close to where Nasif Majeed and his family lived, and he said he was not at St. Monica's because they were known to send some folks away from their campus when they started off at St. Monica's. Everybody didn't stay, did it, Danny? Tarrboro Rd and New Bern Avenue. We had Jeffrey's Seafood. Do y'all remember we used to walk up to Jeffrey's Seafood on Fridays and get that special, that big bundle of fish? What did you get, 100 fish for $5? We had to bring them back home. Their parents had to clean them, but that's how they fed us well. We got those specials, Piggly Wiggly, and a Tip Top store, the Nuns Convent, the St. Monica Church and Auditorium, and the Priest's Home, and of course our school. After the school no longer was servicing at elementary grades 1 through 8, it became a New Bern Avenue Child Development Center, which was developed by my sister, Mary E. Williams Sharp. She was the first developer of the Child Development Program up here at St. Monica's. Closer to St. Aug, we passed by the C.J. Barber home, the May home, The Christmas family, yes, the family name was Christmas. Chester, Charles, Percy, all of them were down on the corner of Lane and Tarrboro Road, across from O'Rourke Cemetery. Then we rented a Dan Sherman store and cab company, and Lim Sherman's father. They actually lived on Oakwood Avenue. We have various housing types in our neighborhood, is the point I'm trying to make, different types of people. We have a variety of people with different skills and talents, and we looked out for each other. I believe right now the oldest person we have, alumnus of St. Monica School, is over 100 years old. Her daughter is here today. Would you raise your hand, please? Karen Haynes' mother, I just found out yesterday, was one of our alums from St. Monica School. Huh? She's 101 now. Oh, great. Miss Jones. Anyway, she is the oldest one, and she is still living today, so we pay honor for that. We had single-family homes, duplexes, multiplexes, various business. Fallon's Florist, actually, what nursery was on the corner of Lane and Idlewild Avenue when I was young. Yes, it was. And then Mr. Bynum of Bynum and Optometry was in the 100 block of Idlewild during the time that we were there. And of course, he was white. The point there, when we were living there initially, it was a mixed, racially mixed neighborhood. My neighbors to across from me on the Jones Street side were also Caucasian. I don't remember their names. We didn't go to each other's houses. We could stand in our yard and talk across the street to each other, but we didn't go in each other's yards. It was a variety of things that we experienced as children. We went to public school at Ligon, couldn't wait to get to Ligon High School, and so very blessed that we had those opportunities, that we walked from Idlewild over to Ligon School every day and enjoyed every bit. We had no buses, but it was a community that we thrived off of. We still thrive, and we're concerned about how the changes that are occurring now do not include enough citizen participation for the citizens to declare how they would like to keep their neighborhoods intact, to continue to provide services and opportunities for us to know each other, support each other, and to help make this city a great place to live. So that's the Idlewild story. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone. All I can say is ditto to what everyone has said. This is my community, my neighbors, everybody, and Lynette just took over the whole neighborhood.
She told the truth.
Yes, but what I do want to say is we are a deep-rooted and caring community. We have a lot of people that have come out of this neighborhood that have done so many great things. Now, when Lynette mentioned the Poes, I'm a Poe as well, not only Poe. Our parents were Poes. As a matter of fact, the Poe family lived right at the end of Tarrboro Rd, the driveway leading out of this center. As she said, our grandparents had pomegranates that they sold to the St. Monica's team or school. The ones that wasn't stolen, right? But her father was Thomas C. Miller. I don't know if you all have ever heard that name before. But Thomas C. Miller was part of the 1989 Wilmington riot. That was our great-grandfather. Also, our grandfather, well, my grandfather, this is on the other side now. My grandfather owned Eddie Cox Grocery, which was right where Richard B. Harrison Library is currently. I don't know how many people are old enough to know that during that time, corner stores, they ran the tab. You could go in and they'll write your name down, put how much you owe, and you pay them when you got paid on Friday. That was the type of business that my grandfather did. Now, just because he had the store and I was his grandchild, I had to pay still. But as I said, everyone has really covered the neighborhood. You, Mr. Stokes, Lynette, all of it's just a family here, and we love this neighborhood, and we will not let it be erased from the map. Thank you.
And I'm down here with College Park, but when we talked about my mom, who lived in College Park all of her life. She was born in Johnson County, one of 7 children. They all lost both parents at the same time. They were getting ready to be put in foster care, and her uncle, her dad's brother, showed up and said, no, the children are coming with me. So he had a house on the corner of St. Augustine's Avenue and Jones Street. The house is still there. Mr. Miller Jones passed not too long ago, and he and his family lived there for a long time. And they felt that they were some children who were not supposed to succeed because they didn't have anybody. If you lose your mom and dad, they were murdered at the same time, you feel that you just don't belong, so to speak. But I want to say that she lived in this community, she worked in this community in occasions just like we are doing right now, and as far as I'm concerned, she succeeded. I lived right here, as Faye described. I think they have picnic tables right here now. That's where our house was. It was a 2-story house because our grandmother had 10 children and my dad was 1. So when he married my mom, she moved in with them. So that's how I grew up in the neighborhood as well. And at some point, my dad passed, and then Mom got out on her own. And as far from here as she moved was Martin Street. Otherwise, she lived at the St. Augustine's address, and she later lived at the Pender Street address, and she was able to acquire property around her from another person in our neighborhood, College Park. What's his name? Miss Brooks. He left me right then. Miss Brooks. So some of you may remember Miss Brooks too. I think she had a store a block up on Pender and what's this street where Miss Oaks had her store? You recognize the name Miss Oaks as well. Pender and the side street. It was a corner as well. Okay. I had a lot of birthdays since I had to remember this stuff. So help me. A lot of birthdays, and I feel so blessed. And I am the only child. I was the Pope that Lynette mentioned earlier. I thought she was gonna forget me, but she didn't. I appreciate that. And she mentioned Benny Mac, she mentioned the Mac family. So that's how I met him. We lived a block away from each other. And I've been married to him for about 56 years now. Too many to count, but we keep on counting. But back to my mom, she just did pretty well considering. She was able to help others in the neighborhood with living accommodations. But like I said, she worked a lot in occasions like this for the neighborhood, for College Park. So unless you have a question, that's pretty much it, unless Faye has something else.
I do
Does
want
have a question.
Oh, she got a question. I'm sorry.
Names.
Okay, Iredale Sanders Poe. And as Lynette said, I went to St. Monica's, where I went out my back door, cut through the bushes, and got in line to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And I was on time. I was at the end of the line, but I was on time. I went to Tuttle Center in the afternoon for the activities that they had. I mean, those were the days. Those were the days when we weren't with our parents. We were in good care with other people, and we were still able to learn. And then when I finished Ligon, a week or two, Mama let me lay around the house. And then she said, come on, girl, we're going over here to this school, and you're going to enroll. What school, Mama? I didn't grow up talking about going to college, you know? So she just came in there one day, and we went over there, and I did go to Shaw and successfully finished. So all right. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Close to that. I got one more thing. In addition to my story, I wanted to mention, as I said, my grandparents lived in the neighborhood and we came from large families, 10 children, you know, that type of thing. But we would live at our grandmother's house here and the one by the library until we built our home. And we built our home around the corner from my grandfather, Eddie Cox Grocery, because he owned land too, and he sold his land to my father, and that's where we built our home. And that was at that time called Edenton Street. It's Boyer Street now. However, when we bought and lived there, it was Edenton Street and later changed to Boyer. I never left the neighborhood. Well, I did. I left the neighborhood for a short time after I married and eventually moved back into the neighborhood. I am currently living on the corner of Joan and Pettigrew Street now and have been there 40 years. I want to mention that Mr. John Stokes, your uncle, was a real helper in me getting my home. He was my cheerleader, as they say, and I appreciate him. But I just want you to know, I have left the neighborhood, but this is home, and this is where I've been all my life.
And the same for me. I left the neighborhood, but I still Thank you. If you have any questions, I really would like for you to hold it way to the end. At this point, I would like to talk about Mr. Al Perry. When I needed help in Idlewild, I'm gonna say Idlewild and College Park, okay? In Idlewild, College Park, Mr. Perry was there. Ever since the 1970s, Mr. Perry was there. He helped us with our rezoning from an R20 to an R10. That's why we don't want our neighborhood rezoned. We fought hard for that rezoning, Ms. Perry. That was an 8-month process. And we're not gonna give up our rezoning to the Transit Overlay District. You know, they come up with these big dreams, but they don't know what people been through. And that's a problem. That's a big, big problem. You just write it down on paper and there it is. And we gotta fight. But it's ridiculous. Newbern Avenue should not look like downtown. That is ridiculous. It should never look like downtown. And Mr. Perry, he has fought with us very, very hard. And he has also been a person that when we had our national night outs, who was cooking? Chef Perry. I mean, he was grilling up a sword. I mean, he was grilling. And you know what? He cooked some good cheeseburgers and hot dogs. You did, Mr. Perry. You did. And he was supportive of the neighborhood. And although he was the principal, he always took time out for the neighborhood. He always put us first. And I just admire you for that. No one has served us like you have. You have been there every bit of the way. And me, y'all have been there. You are Mr. Father of Idlewild. There is no other than you. Now, we'll have your trophy, but they messed your trophy all up. I said, I can't give Al that trophy like that. So I give it to you next week. But I want to thank you for everything you have done for us. Ms. Perry, or Ms. Perry, would you like to say a word?
Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts is the King of glory. We're talking about celebrating our past. That's very important. But don't forget, don't get so wrapped up thinking that you have arrived, because we have not. A good example are Octavius called me, are you on your way? I got in my car and started on my way, and what did I see? Blue lights. What have I done? You didn't stay stopped at a four-way stop sign. Good. Time has not passed that we still have a tendency to have certain people in certain cars and then think you're going to get away with it. I said, okay, ma'am, you got me. What do you want? I'm on my way to a performance. Charge me. Give me what you need, because this is not unusual from us. We had a mayor that we had spoken here at the CAC, and my husband spoke out, and right after that, we were targeted, and we've been targeted ever since. But I thank God that he's in charge. I thank God that he's in charge. But I want to tell you, sitting here, don't become too complacent. The man, when we're sleeping, is thinking. There's stuff that they want to run down Newman Avenue and all of this, watch it. What is it in for us? I want you to think about it and think deep. I am so happy that the Capper brothers and wife and others came out to support my husband for this occasion. Would you please stand, those Cappers? I want to thank you. And why I'm standing, I know you've been sitting for a long time. I'm not in charge, but sometimes we need to stand up. But I want to say this before I take my seat. We've come a long ways, but we got a long ways to go. You better read the fine print, and don't be so easy to sell out. Every day somebody's calling, I want to buy your property. My question is, did you see a sign, where am I going to live? They are making no more land. So don't be so glad, happy over the dollar and sell out everything that you got. I didn't come to preach, but I came to tell you, since I got a ticket and it's going to cost me a fortune. But that's okay. God's going to make a way for that to be paid for. Watch and pray, and don't be wrapped up with people coming to you at voting time and you don't see them anymore. Watch that. Watch it. Watch it. From the watch it. If you can't help your community and got to sell yourself out, you don't need to vote for nobody. You're better off. Think about it. The Burwell, I hate to point out, but their family worked so hard. I mean hard for voting. Please, whatever you do, don't let nothing stop you from voting. But don't vote because somebody paid you to vote for somebody. Vote for what that person stands for. And then if that person doesn't do what he promised you, don't vote back no more for him. Now, I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to take my seat. We came to Raleigh in '61. There was a problem of housing. My husband, with the help of God and many people, were able to build some buildings and buy some homes. 2 bedrooms were going for $50. Time has changed. But you know what? It's been a blessing to see the people that came through that. And talking about Iredale Poe, her family, she was one of those also that provided homes for low-income people. But let me tell you something. I'm happy to stand here to say that on the corner of Idlewild and Lane Street, there's a park that bears a person that came from this area, the Morton. Give a hand for him. We have produced in this neighborhood of Southeast Raleigh anything decent that you can name. Lawyers, doctors, preachers, teachers, senators, whatever. But don't, my last step to you, don't become too complacent. Don't think you have arrived. There's a sugar-coated thing that you better watch. And watch it very carefully. Thank you for recognizing my husband as father of Idlewild. He loves this community, and he loves the people. He has fought hard at the city council on all levels with Octavius. I rode on the back of a pickup truck to keep that whiskey stuff from coming to St. Augustine College. We blocked the highways and put a casket out there to protest the things that they were doing to black people. You remember that, Octavius? Yeah. We want to thank you. God bless you. And keep in mind, you come a long ways, baby. All right. But baby, you got a long ways to go. And if you're not careful, watch your neighborhood. Yeah. If you're not careful. Thank you, and God bless you.
I'm going to switch the program around, and I'm going to bring Fourth Ward up, and you only have 2 minutes to speak. And then the fire department, 2 minutes to speak. So I'm going to bring Fourth Ward up to talk about their project that they're working on and what this really means, and we'll be asking for your support and your prayers. Thank you. Come on. 2 minutes now.
Thank you. It's so good to see everyone. Thank you for inviting us to Porchfest. My name is Rosa Rand. I am a member of the Fourth Ward Neighborhood Committee. Fourth Ward was our neighborhood before urban renewal. When urban renewal came through, it destroyed Fourth Ward. We had over 3,000 residences living in Fourth Ward. They painted the city of Raleigh, the city council, and some other people painted Fourth Ward as just a slum, an area that had deteriorated. But I'm here to tell you that we had 44 businesses that were prospering. We had pastors, teachers, lawyers. I myself am a 40-year teacher with Wake County Public School. Some of the greatest memories I have were growing up in Fourth Ward. It was a safe haven for us. My dream today is that Fourth Ward is noted and recognized as being a historic neighborhood. We had historic Washington School. There's Mount Lawn Cemetery. There's nothing anywhere that says this is what has come before. I've heard several people say, without a past, you have no future. It's really sad that we can't pass our legacy on to our children. Dorothea Dix was there. And if you know Fourth Ward, there was no greater fun than when it snowed, going to Dorothea Dix and sledding and sliding down the hills and having fun. I was born at 631, and there was a fence that ran right there that divided our neighborhoods. We couldn't go up the street, and of course the majority of people couldn't come down the street. But still, regardless of what they did, we showed respect, we stayed strong, and we had good role models in our neighborhoods. Yes, there were people that did things that we couldn't do, but I can still remember my parents saying, your home is inside this house. And regardless of what, you've got stuff inside of you that money can't buy. Hold your head up and keep working. Today, I ask for your support as we challenge the city to recognize that Fourth Ward was historic. We want a sign put up that says Fourth Ward. Fourth Ward was one of the largest African American neighborhoods and probably one of the first, along with Smoky Hollow. Thank you for any support that you can give us, and just know it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where you go and how you serve other people and what you can do for your community. Thank you.
To have, where is my Judge Morgan come up for 2 minutes and announce he's running for office?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Morgan, and I am most recently retired from being on the Supreme Court of North Carolina. I was a senior associate justice when I stepped down just a few weeks ago. And in doing that, I've got too much energy to sit in somebody's rocking chair. Got too much energy for that, and I love North Carolina too much for that. But before I say what I'm doing right now, just let me thank and congratulate all of you. Those who I've got my back turned, I'm sorry about that as well. But thank you so much for celebrating community, because our communities make North Carolina strong. And you need to know your past. And that's why I'm glad we're celebrating the past, because if you don't know your past and celebrate your past, then you're destined to repeat the matters in the past from which you should have learned to make your present and your future all that it can be. So I'm so proud to share all of this with all of you, and I apologize in advance for coming late because I'm just coming in from Greenville, North Carolina, and I apologize for having to leave early because I'm on my way to Haw River. If you don't know your geography, Haw River is in Alamance County. But I'm covering this whole state. And the reason why I'm covering this whole state is because I love North Carolina. And I want to make North Carolina all that it can be. There's some in our communities that aren't getting educated like they should. There's some that are being subjected to gun violence as they ought not. Some of us are having problems with affordable health care. Some of us are not having the ability to be able to buy what we need to buy to keep our lifestyles up. Some of us have paid our debt to society but aren't being allowed to go forward and be all we can be because we still got the monkey on our backs because we're not able to get expungements. And some of us are being punished for being mentally ill because some folks don't understand that we don't choose to be sick, so don't punish us for being sick. So there are a lot of things I got to talk about, and that's why I'm going across North Carolina. And Octavian sponsors, thank you for allowing me to be here to say a few things, because as I close, because I feel Octavia closing in, I just want to let you know that the reason why I'm late, and the reason why I'm leaving early, and the reason why I'm talking about all these things, because I'm going across all this state, Because ladies and gentlemen, in front of me, to the side of me, and behind me, I'm running for governor of the state of North Carolina. And I thank you for that encouraging response. I'm going everywhere. I'm doing everything. I belong to you because I live right up the street. I live 3 miles up Rock Quarry Road. So I'm traveling everywhere I can, traveling with this message. And I know the time is short, but just suffice it to say, I'll be back. And I'm coming around. And it's already being known I'm coming. I'm going to be at Mount Peace worshiping tomorrow. I'm going to be at Macedonia worshiping next Sunday, October 22nd. And then after that, I'm going all across this state to worship and continue to take the message that we're going to make North Carolina all that it can be for everybody. God bless you. Thank you. I'll see you soon.
I am so excited about you running for governor. You got my vote and my endorsement. And you know what? We're going to paint the governor's mansion black. That's right. We're going to paint it black.
God bless you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. I would like to ask you to keep your speeches to 2 minutes now. So that is Limbia with the fire department, Willie Stokes, Sam Craven. 2 minutes now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now, when I first got here, Octavia told me I had 5 minutes. But on a serious note, I would like to take one of my 2 minutes to honor our retired fire chief who we lost this past Thursday. So we can have a moment of silence for retired Fire Chief John McGrath. He lost the battle to leukemia this past Thursday evening. So thank you for taking that moment with me. Chief McGrath was the chief that hired me. I was in his first academy 17 years ago, and it's just how history, just works. It's life. And a couple of days ago, when Miss Octavia Rainey said, "Hey, I'm moving to town with this event. You can come now." Because we have an event later this evening, she asked me to talk about history, Black history within, the Raleigh Fire Department. So, not to talk very long, but back in the 1800s, we were a volunteer department, and we had volunteer firefighters. Folks got off of work and fought fires together, and back in 1869, the first Black fire company was created, and it was known as Fire Company Number 1. And then 1 year later, they went to the North Carolina State Fair, and they won the hand engine contest, and they changed their name to the Victor's Fire Company. So from 1869 to 1912, the Victor Fire Company ran work right in this area around Hargan and Blunt Street to serve our community. And what's so amazing is when I was preparing my speech, I'm shortening as I go, just to let you know. But when I was preparing to talk about it, I always like to put myself in their shoes. How was it like in the 1800s? They went to the fires on their feet, and they used to hand rail the hose to the scene. And then they eventually got got horses to take the fire engines to the scene, and eventually we got the steam engines. So many years ago, fighting fires was completely different than it was today. And the one thing I would say that's really sad is back in 1912, when we became a career firefighter, it was 51 years later that we hired our first black firefighter. But I will say, we've been making up ever since then. When we came on the scene back in '06, there was a push for diversity within the fire department, and we hired more black people, more minorities at one time in '06. And ever since then, the Raleigh Fire Department has been very consistent in hiring minorities for the fire department. We got a minority female black chief. We've got many black officers within the fire department, and our fire chief is a black man who's from Houston, Texas, who's from New Orleans. But we finally have a black chief as the head of the fire department. So I want to thank Octavia for your time today, and we're here for you guys to serve you. And we do this, because we love serving you all. We're here to help you on your worst days. So thank you for all your support, and we'll see you around.
Okay, it's time to end this program, and I want to give God all the praise and all the glory for all of us coming out here today to listen to our speakers of the day and knowing a little bit more about this community. I was born in this community, but I went away and drew me back. So I'm here, still welcoming me home. People see me now, they welcome me home. So I just want to thank you all for coming out today. I know a lot of faces, I forget a lot of names because 80 years old won't let you remember too much. So I'm trying to remember what I can, and I just want to give God all the praise and all the glory. And may God watch over us, keep us in His heart, and let us dwell in His house forever and ever when we go home. Amen. Amen.
Good afternoon. I don't know what Octavia's saying. Last night I had 15 minutes. I worked on this for 2 weeks, so y'all gonna get the 15 minutes. And it won't be 15 minutes, I'm joking. Okay, I'm representing the James May family. If you look out the doors here, the house right across the street, the corner, Tarrboro and Jones, 201. That's the May family house. James Henry May was born in 1865 in Chapel Hill. He was a free-issue slave. His wife, Martha Helen Burnett, I never knew her. I did know him. She was born in 72. They married when she was 18 and he was 25, had 7 children. I don't know where they lived right after they married, but they built that house in 1917. And it is still in our family. Grandpa Jim, that's how I refer to him. Grandpa Jim worked as a bricklayer. He was let me get my notes, because like I said, I've been researching for 2 weeks now. He was a bricklayer. He worked at Pilot Mills. He carried mail, and he lit the gas lights on Fayetteville Street every night before there was electricity. He was also right there on the land. There were fruit trees to feed the family. They raised corn, peas, sweet potatoes, a variety of other things. If you look around the neighborhood, and those of you who grew up around here, we know green apple trees were everywhere. Everywhere. And everybody ate them and threw them at each other and all those kind of fun things. So I found out, hold on, and I meant to show y'all. That's them. James and Martha May. And growing up, you can imagine, most of us said, that's a white man. We come in all colors, that's right. So 2 houses down, I think it's 209, the Strickland house. Mr. and Miss Strickland, he was president at Mechanics and Farmers. They had 2 daughters. And a lot of us, Nasif's family, the Mays, the Stricklands, Miss Pearl Williams, who was further down, we all belong to St. Ambrose Episcopal Church. And one of Mrs. Strickland's daughters told me one day at church, I've got something for you. You know, your granddaddy used to whittle all the time. And one day I was over there playing and he made me a fruit basket. It's like, what? This has got to be over 100 years old. He whittled. He was a whittler. And out of a peach pit, while they were sitting on the back steps, he whittled this peach basket, this little basket, out of a peach pit. And gave that to, and some of you may know Charles C. Royster. That's who gave it to me. So of those 7 children they had, my father was the baby, Joseph. But the second to the baby, Mary Eliza, known as Meliza, married Carlton James Barber in 1939. In 1941, they purchased part of the land from my grandfather. That is now 205 North Tarrboro, the brick house next to the family house, where I have resided for the last 31 years. James Barber and Mary Barber were educators. He was a principal of, hold up, got them too. He was a principal of Booker T. Washington in Clarkton, North Carolina, Bladen County, for 17 years. Moved here and became principal of Garner Consolidated High School for 8 years. And under his team, okay, I was having flashbacks listening to people. I think I was 7 when they came. And that summer, Aunt Mary, Uncle Carlton Jr., their one and only son, and I and Mr. Williams, I can't remember his first name, the sexton at that school, we cleaned out that school. Now I went to St. Monica's where we had to buy our books every year. I had not interacted with public schools. And this was a county public school. Their books were undescribable. They were falling apart. The backs were off, the pages were falling out because they were hand-me-downs from the white school. And that was the first time I had heard anyone in my family curse. He lost his mind. And he got better books for that school. He built a couple of buildings, 2 of which still stand today, even though the original has been torn down. He started the band, the football team, a lot of things. But that's the Barber family. We're talking about the May family. Okay. So he purchased the land from my grandfather, and then they built that home in 1952. So that's what she asked me to talk about, those 2 properties. But I'm going to keep going. So my father married my mother in 41, and they moved further down Tarrboro to 312, the little cinder block house right next to Tuttle Center, where they stayed until he built a house on Pool Road in 1954. A lot of the children, some of you from the area familiar with Howard Pullen, who used to be for years the director of Chavis Park. That was my first cousin. His mother was Violet May. And she and Howard Pullen Sr. spent, I think, the first 5 or 6 years of his life at 201 before they built and moved to Heck Street. That house is no longer there. Nasif's father grew up across the street from my father. They were buddies. He introduced my father, I don't know if you knew that. Okay. His mother was a Lightner, worked at Lightner Funeral Home. My mother worked at Lightner Funeral Home. His parents picked her up one day to carry her home, stopped at the pool room on Blunt Street, and introduced my father to my mother. So, you didn't know that, did you? Yeah. So, you know, throughout the community, there's so much history. Esther, who had to leave, she's a Delaney. The Delaney house was built at 212 State Street in 1918. Dr. Lemuel Delaney. Her father, Lemuel Jr., owned the pool room that my parents met. And we've been together all our lives. Like she had to leave. She was going to give a little history. I'll just give this one point. Dr. Delaney was an outstanding medical physician. He was one of the children of Henry Beard Delaney. You heard of the Delaney sisters? They were all part of that family that grew up on St. Augustine's campus. And Henry Beard Delaney became the first African-American bishop in the Episcopal Church, the second one, but the first one in North Carolina. He, with Nasif's grandfather, built the chapel at St. Aug, taught brick masonry over there. Lemuel Sr., Esther's grandfather, was a renowned doctor in the African-American community. But at night, white doctors would come and get him to do surgeries on white patients at Rex Hospital. That's how good he was. So a lot of people have no idea those black hands have been in their body. And that's all I'll give you on the Delaney thing.
It's Sam Craven, Love Les Burwell, and Ambassador.
First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone. It's been a long, long time since I have been able to come forward and talk about my family, the Weavers from Raleigh. It goes all the way back to the 1900s. And what I know, I'm gonna share some brief information with you. 1203 East Lane Street. Dave Weaver, Ernestine Weaver, Ernestine was my grandmother's sister. She married into the Weavers family and became his right hand, Dave Weaver. Then he went off to the military, came back and started buying up property. He bought half of Lane Street, him and his sisters and brothers, and I say Lane Street, the 1200 block, the 1300 block, some on Pender, some on Jones, and he was an entrepreneur. He was a music promoter as well. He went to New York promoting. He brought Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Otis Redding, James Brown. He brought all of them here, and at times they stayed at his house. He had a 26-room story house, 1203. It was the biggest house on the block. So I don't know how we can miss that house, 1203 East Lane Street. The Delaney sisters stayed opposite side off of State, but the other part of the house was on Lane Street. Then the Pullens took over. From there, I would say that the house was built in 1922. The city of Raleigh made it a historical house. Then, lo and behold, they tore it down. They tore it down. I am so furious with the city because certain members told me that house would never be torn down. and I have the monument of it being historic. It was the city did that in 1998, made it a historical house, and I have the plaque today in my backyard to remember that house. And I have pictures when they came and tore that house down 4 years ago. 4 years ago, they tore their house down. And today, it's 3 houses on that piece of property. 3 houses, you know. And it disturbs me, you know, that you say one thing and you do something else. And then you start fighting and going to the city council, asking them, they say, oh, we made a mistake. Yes, you did make a mistake, you know, but they want you to forgive them. You can't forgive something that was there that's no longer there, and you put 3 houses on that lot. And it's unreal. You know, we, as Afro-Americans, I couldn't keep the house up. My family didn't have that much money. So the city wanted to go in and say, if y'all do this, we'll do that. And we was trying to raise money to keep the house up. Then my cousin, he moved from Boston because his mother was staying there, Ernestine. Then his mother, Vivian House, she was a school teacher in Charlotte. Then she came back down and she got ill, and it just started trickling down. Nothing ever happened. So we had to board the house up. But let me go back a little further, because I think this is important. In the yard, about the size of this circle there were goldfish they had I don't know what you call a pond in the front yard with big goldfish in there. I was a little boy then. That just amazed me, you know, to see black folks with goldfish, you know. And they were the first one to have electricity on Lane Street. The first. And that amazed me. And I'm hearing this from someone that I didn't know, but the grandson was telling me all this. Al Jr., he worked over St. Augustine's in the library. You know, they were the first one to have electricity, black. You know, and I would go over there and chop wood for them because they heated by oil, but the kitchen didn't have no place for oil vents to go through. So the stove was a 6-burner stove there, and I have that stove today. You know, and my grandmother's sister, Ernestine, it was amazing how she entertained everybody, the dancers, the musicians that came to the house. They even had the butler's quarters in their house, you know, and that was amazing to me for Afro-Americans / black to have a butler's quarter, you know. And I do have pictures of all of these people that I'm talking about today, as well as him. He had a soda shop, Weaver's Soda Shop on Cabarrus Street, in the Masonic Temple building. We used to go run up there all the time and go get cookies and for a penny or something. You know, it was just amazing. And my grandmother stayed on Person Street, and we would always say, Grandma, we going to Uncle Dave's soda shop. She said, y'all better be careful crossing them streets up there. But it was just amazing how your communities were and how they are today. And we need to preserve something in our communities where we can go back and talk about and to instill this into our youth. Because if it's nothing there, how are you going to talk about something? You can't talk about anything if it's not there. My cousin Everett, he can say some things about the house as well. You know, how they had their little shindigs and everything, but that was tradition. They doing it now. So what back during that time, it was a big thing, you know, to say, well, I'm going to the Weaver's house for a dance, and they had a dance hall and everything in the house. you know, and the house was laid out. I mean, it was fabulous, you know, for that many rooms in a house. And it won't no little bitty rooms neither. It won't little bitty where you just could squeeze through the door. No, it was not. You want to say something about our house on Lane? How you stayed there? I stayed there. Felicia stayed there. We had so many of us staying in the house when Aunt Steen got sick. You was at St. Augustine, right? You was married then, yeah. He would come and stay. I would stay, and some of my sisters and my mother even stayed there at times just to keep things going. But I must say, in order for us to have something, we got to talk about it and be about it. You know, we got to speak up and speak out, because if we don't never say anything about our communities or where we came from, people would never know. You know, so we got a job to do, you know, to instill in our youth where we came from, because they won't know themselves. I got another appointment this evening, but I want to leave some pictures back in the back, and I'm gonna leave them with you. So if you want to put them out so people can see them, but I definitely need that stuff back.
Well, you have to put it in my hand, then I'll put it out. Because I don't want your picture to get missing.
I don't want it to get missing. I know what you're saying.
Okay.
But God is good to all of us, I must say that. And He has given us certain things and certain tools to use to the best of our ability. And if we don't use these tools, you know what? He'll take them away from us and give them to somebody else that needs that opportunity to share the information like we sharing today. And I want to say thank you for your time, and I thank you for just giving me this opportunity to talk about my uncle, because I know it's a lot of other people that got something to say better than me. Have a great day.
I promise not to be before you long. It gives me great pleasure to have a few words to say about my family and its impact on the neighborhood over here in Fourth Ward. My father's name was Lovelace Hampton Burwell Sr. I am Junior. For those who might not recognize me or recognized me before when I was younger, this is a product of my father and my mother, Betsy Burwell. Out of that marriage came 3 children. I'd like for them to raise their hands: Gwendolyn Burwell Brown, Deborah Burwell Manson. And we were very close knit. His business was Browning's Barber Shop at 1600 Oakwood Avenue on the corner of Hill and Oakwood. He was a product of Harris Barber College. His skills were a master barber. His community impact was a lot for the people that he came in contact with. During the time he had his shop, he would take interns from Harris Barber College and train them. One you'll hear from in a few minutes. And I'll say his name. His name is Sylvester White. I was very proud of him and very close to him. A lot of times my dad would cut hair for people who weren't able to pay him. And it would come back, just like Faye mentioned about her dad's store, granddad's store. Mr. Cox, he would come by and pay on the days that they were paid, and it was well with him. He earned the respect of the neighborhood who know him. Unfortunately, my father passed in 1971, which was a big blow to the neighborhood. It was a shock to a lot of people because Dad, better known as Love, was a very important figure on that corner. Sometimes other guys could come by the shop and couldn't pay for it. The haircuts, he would always have a big pot of beans with ham hocks on the stove. And he would say, Love, let me sweep the floor, let me clean the shop up and the bathroom up for you for a bowl of those beans. And Dad would honorably oblige him and say, yeah, help yourself. Okay, in other words, everybody who knew my father loved him and knew that he was cared about and helped take care of the community. He also loved and provided for his family. And our mother encouraged us to stay in school and do our best and become responsible members of society. They both were wonderful role models for us. Speaking of my two sisters, they both graduated from college. I attended Shaw University, but didn't graduate, but I was 12 and a half years in the Air Force. My baby sister went to Hampton University and graduated. Even as adults, we still hear from people who say, nobody could ever cut my hair like your dad. That's not to take anything away from you, Sil, because you were one of his top students. Although he never gained financial wealth, he taught us to having a good reputation was far more valuable than money. He also taught us never to look down on those who were less fortunate than us. Respect all of them, and we wanted to be respected as well. Thanks, Dan.
Good afternoon. My name is Delwyn Mecklenberg King. I'm here to honor my mother, Frances Oliver Mecklenberg McGill, the Fox. Here is a picture of my mother, the Fox. Wherever she went, she lit up the room. You see how she went in the room like this? I was the Fox. She was definitely a Fox. Will my family please stand? My children are here. I got two of my brothers here. Pierre Mecklenberg, Adam Mecklenberg, my daughter, Louise and Peyton. My nieces, grandchildren. But my mother was very well known. A lot of people know my mama as Olivette Beasley. She married a college sweetheart. My mama went to St. Augustine's College. She married her husband, John Beasley, from there, and she had 6 children. I have 5 brothers. I'm the only girl, so I'm a rose among 5 thorns. So then she later married a Mecklenberg, and he adopted us. We changed our name to Mecklenberg, so that's what everybody calls the Mecklenberg family. We lived on the corner of Hill and Edenton Street. The street is called Boyer Street now, named after Dr. Boyer at St. Augustine's College. Mama graduated from St. Augustine's College in music. She majored in voice and piano. She taught voice and piano at her home. She taught voice and piano in the neighborhood. So many people took piano lessons from my mom. Half of them can't play now, but that's okay. But she taught them, and it was up to them to learn. But she taught music. She taught adult-based education at Wake Tech, and she filled in at a lot of different schools. But my mama had 32 jobs in her lifetime. And y'all thought that Oprah was the first black that had her own TV show, but no, my mother, Olivette Mecklenberg, had her own TV show. It was called Opportunity Line. And here's, you probably can't see, it was a Carolina in 1968. and she brought jobs to people, but she had her own show. And she also wrote poems. She was very well, she loved school, she loved education. She taught people how to write. She had her own writing business. She had what they call a personal touch. She made cards and letters. A lot of people come to my mom and say, you know, I got this letter in me. I don't know what to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And she would tell them what to do. She would write letters for them, and they would copy it. But she wrote a lot of poems. She had this poem called Sometimes. She wrote this poem called For My Children. She was a writer. She won a lot of awards for prayers, and she put them they write in the papers. They were in magazines. The poems she wrote and the letters she wrote. But she was a very look at this. Look at it. The fox. She definitely was a fox. But she loved people, and my mom was in the neighborhood. She would go skating. Back in the day, in the 60s, we didn't have the iPhones, the iPads, the tablets. No, we had each other. It was 40 children in that one block. The Whites had 10 children, the Powells had 10, my mama had 6, the Greens had 4, the people side had 2, the Hintons had 5, and on the corner of the Robertson had 4. There was 42 children within that one block. We played each other. We played hopscotch, jump rope, basketball, football, volleyball. We had red light, green light. Simon Said, hide and seek. We did that, and we had a good time. We would leave home. We didn't have to lock our door. We leave our doors unlocked. When we went places, but you better not leave your door unlocked. Now you might come to the house behind you. But we could leave our doors unlocked because everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew my mama. She loved people. She loved her children. She loved the Lord. She made sure we went to church and Sunday school every Sunday. And you know what? We were like the Jackson 5 with no money. It was 6 of us, and my baby brother was little. And so Mama would have us on every song at every church around here, but we were singing for the Lord. So we were like the Jackson 5, but they got money, we didn't. And that was okay because we were singing for the Lord. But she had us on every program, every church around here. And we went to Murray Phillips. My brother and I went to Murray Phillips School. They had a talent show. And so they asked Mama to write a little skit to be on the program. So we did, we on that talent show. It was called The Squirrel and the 5 Nuts. My mama was a squirrel and the 5 of us was the nuts. But she wrote that tape. My mama did a lot of things in the neighborhood. She taught music to people that couldn't pay. She let them, come free because she loved music and she loved people. So she didn't meet no stranger. Everywhere she went, she met so many people, and everybody loved her. She loved everybody. But she was a good lady, a big heart, and she passed away at the age of 3 years ago. She was 90 years young when she passed away. She was a beautiful lady. She had all kinds of awards, all kinds of certificates. I mean, she was in everything. She was in everything. But everybody know her. And also she skate. We would skate. We'd skate and bicycle. My mom would skate. And the neighborhood people come knocking on the door. Miss Oliver, you gonna go skating today? Miss Oliver, can we go skating today? And she would lead the pack. Everybody could skate but me. I said, wait a minute, I'm coming, y'all. I'm like that. And then my brother said, girl, come on here. We got to wait on you. I said, I'm coming. But everybody could skate but me. I got some skate, but I couldn't skate. But that's okay. I was still among the crowd. I was with the people, and we had a good time, and we loved each other. And we had a neighborhood. It was a neighborhood. We all loved each other. We all knew everybody. Mama said, don't y'all do nothing right now, because I got Miss White over there, she watching. I got Miss Carter right there. People, we looked out for each other, and we helped each other, we loved each other. I got woman, and I appreciate you all for your time, but I want to say one thing. I got a grandson that goes to Morehouse College, and he is studying politics, the Marion King, and his major is journalism. And he ran for senator. It's in middle school and high school, they call him the president of the class. He ran for senator, which is the senator of the freshman class, and he won. So he's senator, but he wants to be the president of the United States one day. So y'all keep him in mind, the Marion King. He will be the next president of the United States. Y'all vote for him. Y'all vote for him. But I thank you for my family. I thank you for everybody and everything. Everything we had to do, we had to sing. Mom was a music teacher. We had to sing. When we said our blessing, we had to sing. When we said our prayers, we didn't sing that, but we went to the grocery store. We had to sing when we went to the grocery store. Don't give them a little bit. Say, it's time for us to go to the store to get our groceries. Groceries.
Thank you. That's my dear sweet sister right there. Octavia asked me to come and do a tribute for all the legends that have gone on. So I'm just going to do one verse of It Is Well to honor all the legends here that have gone on, including my dear sweet mother.
Good afternoon. We are Sylvester and Rogerline White. I have to apologize. Sitting back there, it is hard to hear. It's echo. But to all those who are going ahead of us, God bless you, and we are just honored to be here on this day. Rogerline and I are products of Cottage Park community. We were born over in the St. Agnes building to my right, the end of Tarrboro Rd. My first year in education was in St. Monica School, and my wife was at Lucia Hunter School. We were raised on Hill Street. And Hill Street has been a true blessing for us. At the intersection of Hill Street and Edenton at one time, and now is Boyer. My grandfather bought a piece of property back in the 1930s. He built a home there for our family. And today, my sister and brother still live in that dwelling. And we are honored. But a change has come. And we got to be about the change. Because we can't stop progress. Because progress will come. Without a vision, people will perish. And therefore, we gotta realize that things will happen. Rogerline and I started dating on Hill Street, where we lived on Hill Street, and now we are working together on Hill Street. So Hill Street has been a beautiful place for us. But many, many years ago, Hill Street was a farmland. It was a pig pen, hog pen. And it turned developed into a development in 1949 and 1950. It became a dwelling place for minority families. And we were a part of the community at that time, living in our own private homes. But God has blessed us to be a part of the community that we were raised up in. The community that we love and enjoy. We want to encourage those of you who are here today to be thankful for our community and to realize that some of us must prosper and bloom in our community. Be a part of the progress that's happening in our community. And we thank God today that Rogerline and I have one daughter who works with us. We have 2 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. And we are honored today to be owners of Washington Terrace Shopping Center, which is one milestone. Thank you. It's a milestone in our lives because I remember as I listened to those who went ahead of us, the Eddie Cox grocery store, the Polk family, and the Burwell family that was with before me, and many others. It was because of Mr. Lovelace Burwell that I had the opportunity to pursue my career as a barber. I was trying to find my place in this profession, and one day I met him. He invited me to come to work with him at the Browning Barber Shop at the intersection of Oakwood and Hill Street. And that's where I began to move forward in my career. At the same time, my wife was living 1 block from Washington, from Brown's Barber Shop. And therefore, I passed her house every day going to my job. And so one day I was able to meet her and to greet her. And that was over 60 years ago. And then we're still together, 58 years of marriage. And God is getting the glory to us. Amen. Sometime up and sometime down. But God has been gracious to all of us. And I'm so happy to be a part of this community. This is a rare moment that the community can come together and reflect on where we have come from. But remember this, time has brought about a change. I remember when Mr. Dan Sherman had a service station here on the intersection of Oakwood and Tarrboro Rd many, many years ago. I mean, the Haynes family, Dad was a probation officer. And that was the only man in the world that I was afraid of all of my life. I guess it was the authority that he held that caused me to be always aware of him. But I'm so happy today. We don't have enough time to tell all the stories about the things that will happen. But this community is a blessed and rich and delightful community. But as I said earlier, the changes have come. We got to adjust to the change because we cannot stop progress. But let's be a part of the change and let us grow together and be a happy and beautiful and blessed community. As I look around and see each one of your faces, I want to say more, but because of the time, I'm going to let my wife share some words and then we're going to step back and let others come forward.
Hello, everyone. God is truly good, and He has been so good to us over the years. I must reiterate the fact, or even say that we have grandchildren, and we have 2 grandchildren, we have 2 great-grands, and we want to leave a legacy. We want them to carry on. We want them to pick up the banner. We don't want them to forget where we've come from. So therefore, continue to pray for our young people. They need to be steered in the right direction. I was just hoping that we would find more young people here. But anyway, just be aware of the fact that the best is yet to come. Thank you.
I just want everyone to know that after this program is over, we're going to have food over across the hall. So next we have Mr. Worth. Is the Matley family here? The Morin family? Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Good afternoon. My name is Charles Worth. I was born and raised St. Agnes Hospital. I went to Telecommunity Center where I had my first wife there in 1954. It was a Tom Thumb wedding, so I'm on wife number 3 now. I'm the knee baby of the family. I actually lived, our home place is Jones Street. We were in the 1400 block of Jones Street. My family, my mother and father have been there since 1938. and the house has been in the family since that time. My brother had been living there my older brother, up until last year. However, he's currently in a rehab facility in Zebulon. Since he was no longer living there, and there were so many folks who were trying to get us to sell the house and whatever, I sold the house, but I sold it to my daughter. So this neighborhood means quite a bit to us, and I instilled that into my kids. My daughter said, "Dad, we know you're getting offers for the house and whatever, but we want to keep the house in the family," and so that's what they're going to do. I had the luxury of growing up on Jones Street, and Nasif Majeed was one of my mentors. He and my brother were roommates at the university. That's North Carolina A&T. Aggie Pride. And Mecklenberg here, I'm glad to see we taught him something, because he was in the band just like I was in the band, and he became a Q just like I'm a Q. All of us spent our first years right here at St. Monica's. Like, we were only a block and a half away. So my first 8 years of school were right here in St. Monica's. I see one of my classmates here, because there were only about 10 of us in each of the classes, because it was four rooms, and there were 2 grades in each room. And so everybody knew everybody. So this community was a real community that stuck together. The Perrys, the Whites, all these folks were mentors for me. I got my cousins back here and whatever, so it means a lot. My brother, who's deceased now, the younger brother, was on the planning board in Raleigh, so we had a lot of discussions about the neighborhood and so forth when he was living and so forth. So I'm determined, if I can be a part of it, that we're going to strive as a community has been all those years. And I just want to commend you for coming out today to find out or just get some feedback relative to us who actually grew up in this neighborhood. So I just want to thank you all. Okay?
The Mecklenberg family, Mary Warren's family, come on up. Now,
This is my family. And so I'll let them talk.
I'm not a prolific speaker, so please excuse me, I'm a little nervous. But first I want to say thank you to my aunt. My aunt is deep in the roots of Idlewild College Park. This is not a fly-by-night kind of thing for her. It's not for publicity or any kind of name dropping. She absolutely loves this neighborhood. And I think the only way she'll go out is probably the way she came in. Not on feet, okay? But I just piggyback off that because I want you to know that just because that's my aunt does not mean she doesn't live what she speaks. She doesn't just do things to do them, and that means a lot for us. We're young, of course. These are my sisters. I'm the oldest. What you see are pictures of my sisters when we were younger, my cousin, and this fake picture here, because they're all old, you know. My grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-grandfather, and my grandmother. So it's 3 generations in that picture right there. And I'm sorry it's not bigger. But I really want to say, we started out in a duplex on Carver Street. Carver Street has now been gentrified, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Never thought we would see a house over $120,000 on that street. But we started out in a duplex. My great-grandmother stayed on one side and her sister stayed on the other. They saved up. My grandmother had no formal education. She was pulled out of school in first grade. Neither did her sister. They could not read nor write. This is the same woman who owned the duplex and then moved on East Lane. We enjoyed our lives. My sisters weren't born on Carver. I absolutely enjoyed my childhood. 50 years we stayed on Carver. 50 years, it took my grandmother that long being a maid, because that's all it work she could get back then. She raised me, my aunt, my sisters, my cousin, my other aunt, my mom, and my uncle. My grandmother and her grandmother and father. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate the applause. It wasn't for that, but I still appreciate it, because that was hard work. I don't even think I could do it right now. But I wanted to say that because my grassroots are here. I don't live far from here, but my grassroots are here. We had the best childhood that we could ever have. We ran the street. We ain't have to worry about nobody trying to snatch us, nobody touching on us. You ain't walking nobody's yard. You don't go in nobody's yard, take anything off a tree. I mean, it was just a lovely neighborhood to live in, and people watched over you. We never had to worry about things like that. We were out at night, still on the street, but we're on the street playing. You can't do that now. And to say, when I look back on it, we didn't do a lot of summer camp. We were our own and then our friends, but it was like a big family. It was like a street full of family. And when you have family, what do? You love them, and then they love you back. And so I feel like that's what the neighborhood did for us. It loved us and they loved us back. They protected us, they secured our safety. Nothing ever happened to us. And we love the neighborhood for that. And for my aunt to consider that such a stronghold and a ground root that she wants everybody to feel it, not just from the older to the little younger, but she just wants that love to go forward. And if we don't keep it here and we don't continue to grow it with our new neighbors, not just our old, then it won't happen, it'll disappear. And that's not what we want. And that's not what my aunt wants. So my aunt's gonna keep pushing, she's gonna keep pulling us together, she's gonna keep having these functions, and she's gonna keep wanting you to come. Because without neighbors, without friends, without family, without grassroots, we don't have it and it disappears, and with us the history disappears. Thank you.
Praise the Lord. I'm going to be brief. I'm supposed to have 5 minutes. With the 4 minutes, 2 minutes. So I'm going to make this as brief as possible. My name is Marion Warren. I live in this neighborhood ever since I was 6 years old. I have my cousins in the back. My daddy's great niece and nephews in back. Y'all want to stand up? And my sister was here, but she left. I'm going to try to make it brief as possible because I know it's been long. But I want to thank God, number one, for allowing us to be here, and parents that knew the importance of education, and most of all, knowing the Lord. We always thought about making progress in the neighborhood, but they never forgot to tell us, remember the Lord's Prayer, and even as a child, now you lay me down in the street to sleep. Praise the Lord, our soul to keep. If we die before we wake, praise the Lord, our soul to take. So they instilled that in us. They instilled to love one another. I'm trying to make it as brief as possible. She said, I don't care how high a bird go up in the sky. You have to come down for water. And the same way he meets going up, he's going to meet him coming down. So never forget where you come from. And no matter where you go in life, God is love. Never forget your history. Never forget God. Because that is the strong root of everything we do. And always remember, upon this rock, I build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. We come from a neighborhood, they brought the drugs in the neighborhood to destroy it. And a lot of the young people fell in the trap. But some of them was able to come out of it and start their own business later on. And whatever we do, we have to keep on encouraging the young people. Yes. And if you have profit, try to keep it. Try to keep it in your family. Because we come from a long ways. But the root of everything in life is to love God. And when you love God, it's nothing impossible to happen. And we got to keep his love in our heart. And we got to keep on striving for the high places. Because we shall arrive. We shall arrive. I tell you, and Ivan, they was my classmates. We've been through a lot in life. There's one thing we know, is stay grounded and rooted in the Lord. And nothing impossible. I'm going to keep it short, so keep your faith in the Lord and keep on striving. And if you can, always hold on to what your ancestors left for you. Because we all stand on the shoulders of our ancestors.
Now we're close to the end now. Mr. Sherman? Is Mr. McCullough's here? He's gone. Well, after Mr. Sherman, I'm gonna wrap it on up and we can go eat. Huh? I can John.
Oh. Here at Tarrboro Rd Community Center. So when I moved to Raleigh, it was in 1981. And I used to come to this center, go to the back room. We used to have 8th grade dances, and we used to have a lot of fun. We used to do a lot of activities in this building. So I would like to talk about the actual building. And I actually work here now. I've been working here for 24 years. He hired me when I was in mid-20s. I don't want to tell you how old I am now, but I was in my mid-20s. But anyway, we have produced a lot of people out of this community center as well. And we have I have some co-workers in here that I don't want to say who they are, but anyway. But we've had a wonderful time. We've produced professional basketball players. We have Lavelle Moulton that coaches North Carolina Central that a lot of y'all might know. He's a product of this same gymnasium. You have John Wall, you have P.J. Tucker, you have Devontae Graham that plays for the Spurs. All of them played basketball in this gym. They were raised playing ball in here. So it's a lot of people that came out of this neighborhood that's in the current generation. And we also have Jesse Jeffers, which is the leader of the Black Lawyers Association. He grew up in Idlewild as well. So we have a lot of rich history in this building right here. So I just wanted to share that with y'all and let you know where you're sitting at. And y'all have a wonderful evening and enjoy your time. All right.
But I would like to say one note about Sister Gary. Sister Gary was a dynamic lady. She was the gospel lady. She had the first television show, the first radio show, and also Sister Gary, when she was with Grace M. Design, she lived in the church parsonage on East Lane Street, right up the street from me. So I just wanted you to know that. I would like to thank you all out for coming. Thank you so much. And we have an activity for November. We'll be having our neighborhood Thanksgiving Day. Then we'll be having our breakfast with Santa. Then in January, I'm writing my first play. All right. So I will be calling all the time. I will blow the horn for me. So we're going to do that in January. And then in February, it is our normal 35th year Black History program. So I would like to thank all of you for coming. We need to go over to the afternoon.
Thank you.